Hey, thank you, guys. Good day, everyone, and thank you for allowing us this time to explain the survey protocol for DIDComm. Let me share my screen. You should be able to see the presentation. So we are from Entidad, which is a US-based organization, and we help service organizations of all sizes to digitally transform their operations and reach more of the community members. Like Jorge mentioned in this meeting, from Entidad is Jorge Flores, Carlos.Sanchez, and me. I'm Stephan Bruijnis. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm hoping to do a quick presentation on the DIDComm Survey protocol, which we created a pull request for. So it's currently a proposal, and I'm hoping to share some highlights. A little background on what Entidad is doing and what kind of organizations we are helping. So last year, we helped a number of organizations with a pandemic relief distribution. And this distribution was a grant to farm workers nationwide for the pandemic and the costs they made. And we rolled out an application both on web and a native app to allow farm workers to apply directly for this pandemic relief and also to track the progress of their application. And these are some of the organizations we helped through this digital transformation. And the app we created, we call it Preparase, which is a native app that allows you to, on one end, prove your identity, answer a number of questions to detect if you're eligible, and then share the necessary information like ID documents, proof of address, proof of employment, and communicate with the organization that is actually reviewing your application. And a number of challenges we noticed while developing, and also what we are trying to solve for these organizations, that it's often very difficult and costly for the service providers to connect to their community members and verify farm worker information. And it's really hard for them to scale, especially if it's a pen and paper process. And as a result, many people actually don't get the access to the resources they desperately need. And one of those things, what these organizations would like to do is, for example, do community studies and surveys, which are important tools to understand the demographic and the profiles, living conditions, challenges these community members face. And this information can really help these organizations to form a better plan on how to support their community members. If there are questions, by the way, feel free to ask or reach out after the meeting to me or Jorge. I will share some links, as well as the formal proposal, which will be on GitHub. So feel free to pop up your question. To address these challenges, we came up with a solution which we named Preparase, and Preparase is an implementation of a broader solution we are developing. And the broader solution is what we call the Farmworker Wallet. And what we tend to do with, or aim to do with Preparase, is to change the way providers can connect and verify information. And we're leveraging the digital ID infrastructure, issuing verifiable credentials, secure chat, in a way that is less costly for those organizations and more trustworthy to both parties. And what we also want to do is have the flexibility to add new interactions. And this is what we're building both within Preparase, which is our implementation, but also in the broader solution we're currently working on, which is the Farmworker Wallet OS, a open source project within the Open Wallet Foundation lab. And what we aim to do with that project is to further the adoption of native and cloud wallets. And that is mainly the context for the survey protocol. So surveys, as I mentioned, is one of those tools the organizations we're working with use to understand the community members they're trying to serve. The DIDComm Survey protocol that we created is based on the DIDComm connections and is meant to enable trusted interactions between these parties, so a farm worker and the organization that is helping them on the other end. And we're currently already using things like the basic messages for secure chat and verifiable credentials, for example, to verify if someone's a farm worker and how their profile, like their basic information, name, date of birth, looks like. And what we would like to add is a survey protocol. And that's where this proposal is about. The goal of the survey protocol is to gather data from a sample or a group of people to better understand their situation and make more informed decisions. And these surveys should, of course, be reliable, usable, and customizable to be used in a wide variety of contexts. So it's not always a fixed set of questions. Language is always an issue. And what we are hoping to do with this protocol is to utilize a framework, which is called JSON Forms, which utilizes the capability of JSON and JSON schemas to have a simple and declarative way of describing the forms we are actually trying to create. The key concepts within this protocol is a DIDComm connection, which is required before you can actually proceed with this protocol. And one agent behaves as a requester, and the other agent is the responder in this protocol. And so it's a request response interaction. And the message from the requester contains the survey. A number of fields are defined, which contain the schema, the UI schema, possibly initial data to initialize the survey with, and also internationalization data like translations, and which is then rendered in the wallet of the responder as a survey. And the responder has the option to either decline the entire survey or to start completing the survey, and then the response will be sent back as a response message. The protocol can only, well, in this scenario, the role requester is the one who will be initiating the protocol, and he does so by selecting the survey and the connection. And basically, the protocol ends either in an abandoned state if someone starts a problem report, sends a problem report, or when the responder replies with a decline or with the answers on the survey. A more detailed version of this state and the possible changes is available in the formal description of the protocol. A message could look like this, which is a DIDComm v1 version of the protocol. It contains, this is the request message, and it contains a survey ID, which can be set by the business logic to identify the survey in the system that is actually creating it and sending it. The survey schema itself, which is a JSON string defining the survey schema with the questions, the answers, and possible validation rules. The UI schema, which contains information on how to render the survey, like this should be a multiple choice, this should be radio boxes, drop down, things like that. Initial data, which is optional, but it could contain already information you already have. Like if you already know the name of the person you're sending the survey to, you could pre-fill it in the init data, and the person could still change it when completing the survey, but that's part of the schema as well. And the internationalization data, which allows us to translate the fields and descriptions and the title of the survey. These schemas and these JSON strings isn't something we've come up with ourselves. It's part of the JSON Forms framework. So it's a framework that already exists. It's usable on web and on native, and it works well with other frameworks like Angular and Vue to create interactions. We are really wrapping it in a protocol for DIDComm. This is what they have on their website to demo what it can do. So you can generate a JSON form schema which contains the questions, and it has multiple elements like the questions, the UI schema, and possible data elements. And the schema for the questions would look something like this. Yeah, that's quickly the overview of what we are proposing in the survey protocol. Before I hand it off to Carlos for a demo, I want to give a quick opportunity to see if there are any questions so far. We have. Can't see my chat window. Jorge, do you see if there are any questions in the chat?
No, I don't see any. No. I did post a couple links to one for the pull request and one for the JSON Forms framework landing page.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, just before handing it over to Carlos, so if you want more information about us or the app we've built, these are the links, and the Farmworker Wallet OS.community is the website we use to start building the community around the Farmworker Wallet efforts we're currently developing to further the adoption of native and cloud wallets. And over to you, Carlos.
Thanks, Stephan. Hi, everybody. Carlos Sanchez. I'm going to present the demo of the survey protocol that we created. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay. First, before I start the demo, something you have to understand, and already Stephan, is about the JSON forms. Then we use this framework. From this framework is used 3 parameters specifically. The schema then is it's a JSON file, then it's going to declare all the objects that we're going to use in the survey. The US schema is how the control is going to present to the survey, and the data is the initial information. Then we have the preset information we have inside the form. Now we include in translations, then is in another field, and so we need these 3 information for we can render the survey. In the left side we have the requester, in the right side we have the responder. So I'm going to using this. I'm going to log in inside the application that we created for making this test. Inside, when we go inside the menus, we have a lot of options that we are implemented for testing, like question answer, something similar. Services, sorry. So basically, when we trying to, before we start to send any survey, we need to generate a connection. I try to run the demo from the scratch for you to understand how it works and how we implement this part. Give me 1 second. I'm going to scan it. Okay. Then we create a connection. We're going to see in the list, and then the requester, if I go to the details, I'm going to click Send Survey. Here we have the information about the connection. And if we go to the survey, we have the survey ID, and this information then is already filled because we have to put the 4 parameters for testing. Like you can see here, we have survey ID, the JSON schema, and it's pretty similar to this, the US schema. And other information they use is this I18N for translations. If you notice here, we have for English and for Spanish. So I'm going to send the request. So the respondent is going to receive the survey and is going to use the widget inside for render it using these parameters of the JSON forms. So after this, we're going to fill it. I'm going to send the response. And then the requester is going to receive the information. Now, after this, I can go to the surveys and I'm going to see all the surveys that I already sent it. And if I click it here, I'm going to see that information about that connection. I'm going to see the survey information, including the response. And I'm going to notice the rendering of that information. If I go to the service and the respondent, I don't want to see any survey because I already responded that. Now, complement with this, we create a module specifically for surveys. So this module is going to create all the questions and surveys that we need and create all the JSON files. For example, in this case, I already have implementation for Farmworker. For example, we have the responded tutor in two languages, English and Spanish, all the questions. And this is the preview in Spanish. And this is all the information we need for send inside like a JSON format. If I clear it here and I copy this, and I put sorry. Last part is the translations. If I go and send a request, oh, that's weird. Let me see what happened. Oh, it's here, but for some reason don't present before. And like you see, I can check all the information of the survey and it's rendering again. Now, other thing that we implement here is about the language. If you notice, because we have the I18 and the translation file, I put this option only for testing. Suppose the language is going to get in from the cell phone. If we change this here to Spanish, and we render it again, we're going to see all the information in Spanish. That means then we're going to see all the information that we have inside the translations schema of the JSON. Other important thing then is then this JSON form, we implement a widget for presenting in native or mobile devices. I think that's all. I don't know if you have any questions. That's pretty much what we do. Okay.
This is not a question, but I love this. This is great.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Kind of a comment. So during one of the meetups that Indicio had, I believe they brought in like one of their guests. They were talking about how I think it was like farmers needed to re-enter in a ton of information over and over again. And in the case of like the whole survey here, that I wonder if, and maybe this isn't necessarily a protocol thing, but more of like a usability thing in general. Would there be any, are there any ideas of allowing a user to like have information be pre-filled from other existing information or something they've entered in previously?
What do you mean with pre-fill?
I think what he's asking is perhaps your wallet might have a collection of information already stored, like in a credential, perhaps that could satisfy what's being requested in one of the survey questions. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're asking, Colton?
Yeah, along those lines. For example, whenever I sign up to go to said meetups, there's always this little questionnaire asking like, why do you want to go ahead and go to this meetup, and what company do you work for? And I have to enter that in every single time I go ahead and join one of those meetups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I like the concept of it. I don't think we've explicitly explored doing that, but it could certainly add value if we've somehow come up with a way to recognize the question in a format that's being asked, and then a way to retrieve that from information that may already be stored in the wallet. A medical questionnaire, comes to mind, like, the pre-screen when you walk into a healthcare provider for the first time, they will always make you feel like, 100 questions.
Well, and it's not even just like filling out the 100 questions, right? It's like you go to your pediatrician's office and they have you fill out the 100 questions. Then they say, oh, you need to go to the hospital. Then you fill out 100 questions, and then you have to go to the radiologist, and you
Right,
know,
right.
and some of the answers for these, or a lot of the answers for these questions, even if the questions don't always match up, like word for word, a lot of the answers probably would go ahead and be similar amongst all of the questionnaires.
Yeah.
Yep. I know in the Netherlands we have a healthcare coding for those questions, so that would allow you to map between different questions, even if they are slightly differently phrased. If they have the same code, you would be able to map the data. But for this protocol, it's not something we explored from the responder side. We did include the initialization data, so the init data field. If the requester already knows certain information, they can include that in the init data, and then the responder can still change it, but it doesn't require the responder to fill in everything if it's already known. But it's definitely interesting to explore.
Okay, cool.
We've definitely taken inspiration from the protocols that are already on the on the list, question answer, for example. But we were hoping to look for something that accounted for a more complicated or elaborate scenario where you typically don't have one question, you have a series of questions, and then the internationalization based on standards-based internationalization. It was also important. So thank you, Stephan and Carlos, for presenting.
No problem. And we would love to hear more feedback. So if you do have time to review the proposal, please drop in any comments or questions you have on GitHub, or connect through GitHub with us. Thank you.
I will say my apologies for being on the late side to this meeting. That's one of the things that does happen on rare occasion for meetings that happen right after lunchtime for me. Uh, but is there anything else that anybody has at this point in time? That was the only thing that I had on the agenda for today.
I'm curious if anyone's had a chance to take a stab at the webhook-based push notification stuff that we talked about last week.
Actually, now that you talk about it, bring that up. I did get a little bit started on that. I didn't get very far. I took the basic message, and I'll throw that in here as well. But I took the basic message, and I was starting to rename things to push notification, and I didn't get very far on it. I only got as far as renaming up to, or rephrasing up to the connection portion. And then there's still like the states and other pieces of information, the documents that I was not able to get to. And I probably need to share that. Blah, 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 blah. Read and write, everyone. Publish. And there we go, it's published.
It's a great start. Golden, thanks. I was just curious, so thought I'd ask.
Mm-hmm. Anyone have any thoughts or anything else that they'd like to talk about at this time?
What's the just general question for the group? What's the general feeling around DIDComm adoption? Do we feel like it's picking up steam? Is it?
Well, it's never as fast as I would like, but good stuff there. One good signal is the ID union work to bridge the OpenID DIDComm worlds. They wouldn't be doing that without the value that DIDComm provides. So that will get a little bit of airtime at EIC. There's a session that Steve McCowan here in our call is doing with Kim Hamilton Duffy, the ED of the DIF, and there'll be 15-ish minutes in the middle there highlighting that particular work as well. There's also a session that Steve and I are doing talking about post-quantum stuff and how that applies to decentralized identity in general, but we're also going to talk about DIDComm because we're both DIDComm people, so we'll have some air there. One of the difficulties that we've had, and we've made step forwards here, and we need to sort of keep a sort of a steady push on it, is that there's lots of uses of DIDComm that people aren't talking about, and so it's hard to measure adoption when people don't say anything about their adoption of it. And so the powered by DIDComm stuff is got a good start, but we need to keep going on that so that we encourage people that are using DIDComm to share that they are, and that will make it a little bit easier to kind of keep track of adoption and who's doing what.
In regards to that, my clearest indicator that there is a lot of use for it would probably be what I saw at IIW. And while, for example, the demo table for DIDComm did not attract a huge number of people clamoring for attention there were other organizations who were there who I do understand to be using DIDComm, who I believe were gathering a larger crowd at their tables. They had a few things that were a bit shinier to show off. But despite that, like there was just lots of talk of whether it was DIDs or DIDComm, that a lot more talk about it than what I thought there was going to be.
So Gonzalo in the chat, you're making a great point. We need more DIDComm v2, and that is true. Over in the Aries community, there are active efforts underway to update Akapai to DIDComm v2, which is kind of the largest code base that hasn't yet added support for it yet. And so one of the benefits there is that instead of having the DIDComm v2 folks and the DIDComm v1 folks, there's only DIDComm v2 folks, right? And so that is underway as well. Which is going to be a little bit of a quiet thing in the sense that like it's not a brand new adopter of DIDComm, but it's definitely coming up to the current standard of DIDComm, which will increase all sorts of interop and cleaner messaging and stuff. I'm looking forward to no longer explaining that DIDComm v1 is a thing and just talking about DIDComm v2. So that's a super good point to bring up in the chat.
That is a good question. Is there a already a working group for quantum encryption for DIDComm? Not that I know of personally. I don't know if anybody has any info there.
Steve, that's a good question for you on the post-quantum stuff.
Yeah, there's not a post-quantum version of DIDComm just yet. I gave a presentation in the spec group last time or the time before where that was my proposal, that we start looking at it. The timeline is a little shorter than most people think. Technically, products don't have to be post-quantum until 2030 or so. But then when you think about it, usually there's a mad rush to adopt new technologies, especially security technologies, so that you can advertise that yours is more secure than the next guy's. And compound that with the fact that we are building a specification that will be used to create SDKs, and those SDKs need to go into products, and those products are what needs to be done soon, but definitely by 2030. And so backtracking that timeline, that's why we're working on it now. One of the things to keep in mind is Apple, and for iMessages and also Signal, they have post-quantum versions that are layered on top of elliptic curve technologies right now. And so they're being very proactive in adding the new security. And the reason for layering is basically it's no less secure than it is now should something be found with one of the new algorithms. And so if you're using an iPhone, a modern iPhone with the latest operating system, then you're using post-quantum right now. So all of those things mean we need to start looking at how to work it in, and that's part of what Sam and I are going to present about at EIC. And we could probably arrange to do that presentation here in one of our various groups afterwards.
Yeah, there's no secrets that we'll be presenting, but just in the terms of getting the presentation together, it might be nice to do it afterwards, just timeline-wise.
Mm-hmm. Gonzalo, you have your hand up?
Hey guys. Yeah, hey Steve. Thanks for the explanation. I did a Rose Swift library for Swift, so we could apply in DIDComm, because the ones that existed didn't have many things. Well, they were not complete, basically. My question now is, Is there anything for Rose that applies, for example, the post-quantum library used by Signal that is public, right? So the protocol.
Oh, so Signal's protocol?
Yeah, yeah.
So the way I understand that is it's GPL licensed. So it is available, but it's GPL licensed. Essentially, what that means is if you include it in your application, you also need to follow the requirements of GPL3. And a lot, that essentially means open source your product as well. So some people are doing that, some are not. It's also possible, I understand, to negotiate a commercial license, but I think from what I understand, that's really difficult. So it is possible. The spec is open, so you can write your own. But that's a little tricky as well when it comes to GPL3 licensing. So the one, if you take a look, I don't have the link right off, but I could find it. Apple and iMessages, they put out a specification to document their protocol, at least at a high level, and probably technical documentation beneath that will explain exactly how it's done. But they did a lot of things similar but different from what Signal did. I thought it was kind of funny. Signal is famous for its double ratchet protocol. Apple announced that they have a triple ratchet protocol because 3 is better than 2, I guess. Probably what they were doing is finding their own unique twist on that ratcheting mechanism. But I didn't see any restrictive licensing on Apple's protocol. So that might be an easy example if GPL3 is an issue.
But Apple didn't provide a framework, right?
I don't know. They have a lot of APIs for use within the Apple environment. They do release a lot of source code. That one I'm not entirely sure about. I've just been reading up on how to get how the protocol itself works and what that might mean for DIDComm. So I haven't actually downloaded any code to run it.
I saw
So I don't
the
know.
article. You're talking about the article they published, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that article as well. Yeah, I've been trying to see. I don't think they, at least by this time, they released anything that works outside, right? It's all private, so we cannot actually use it.
Right. Yeah, I haven't noticed any even Apple framework that is just the encryption mechanisms that they're using. It is all, from what I understand, at least at this point, still just part of iMessages.
Yeah, I guess so. Cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
I was just thinking earlier, the thought of, or the question about adoption of DIDComm, and I know that my little use cases aren't like that big or grandiose or anything like some organization using it. But one of the things I've been doing is as I'm playing with, Raspberry Pis or any other form of little projects that I'm doing on my own, like on the side as a hobby, I've been trying to incorporate using DIDComm, using things like the DIDComm messaging Python library. And as I'm running into things while playing with that, I have been creating PRs to get merged in to help fine tune and make things easier to use. And I mean, what better way to figure out how to make things easier than to quote unquote reinvent the wheel a million times. And then making it so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Anyone else have any thing that they would like to discuss? All right, hearing nothing, let's take back the remaining 13 minutes of the meeting, and we'll see you all next time. Great meeting, great presentation, and thank you all for coming.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
to the Entidad team for an awesome demo.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.